everyone, and welcome back. It's time for another monthly reading wrap up, and July was a fantastic reading month. I actually had some time off towards the beginning of the month, and that allowed me to have a bit of extra reading time as well, so I was able to read a little bit more than I normally am during the month. So first, a quick recap on what my monthly TBR was for July. I had 6 books that I chose for the July TBR, and those were The Girl Upstairs, The Summer of Yes, The Viking, Lethal Kings, Over the Edge, and 2 novels in Sherlock Holmes, which I decided to go ahead and read them in publication order. So that would have been A Study in Scarlet and The Sign of Four would have been the other 2 books that I got for my classics. Of those 6, I was able to read The Girl Upstairs, The Summer of Yes, Lethal Kings, and Over the Edge. And then I also did start the other 2. I just didn't finish them in time to be able to count them in this monthly wrap up, so I'll have to talk about them in the next month. But I am working my way through The Viking, and I'm about halfway through A Study in Scarlet. So I am working on those. Unfortunately, I ran out of time. I started off the month so strong with reading that I think I was like, oh yeah, I have plenty of time to actually maybe hit everything on my TBR this month. No, that didn't quite work that way. I should have put those a little earlier in the month, but that's okay. I was able to read some other books as well, and that was a lot of fun and very enjoyable. So lots of good reads in July. And we have quite a few books to get through because I think if you count the novella that I read, I'm sitting at 10 books read in July, so let's just get right into it. Now, I'm not going to really go necessarily in order of how I read these, but we'll just kind of make our way through. One of the ones, though, that I did read, I think it was the first one that I finished in the month, was Over the Edge. And this is by Susan May Warren and Tari Faris. And it's the first book in the Summer Rangers series. This was actually really, really good. I enjoyed it. It was quick paced. It was kind of a thin book. It didn't take all that long to read. I think it's right around 300 pages. So it wasn't that long of a book, but I did really enjoy the 2 main characters in this and their adventures and them trying to figure out what in the world was going on and who was after the main female lead. And all of it takes place in the Grand Canyon. So you have not just the danger of the people who are in it, who are after our main female character, but then you also have the danger of the canyon itself. And they do end up having to go into the canyon at one point, and they come face to face with a lot of things in the canyon and the dangers of the canyon itself. This was a really good start to the series, and I am looking forward to reading more in this series. I did go ahead and buy book 2 and hope to read it sooner rather than later. I also read Living Lives by Natalie Walters. This is the first book in the Harbored Secrets series, and this was a lot of fun as well. This is another romantic suspense, and we have a main female character who is really struggling after the death of her husband. And at the height of that struggle, she actually runs across something that she never imagined running across, and that spawns a mystery for this town that she lives in and puts her life on the line as well. She ends up really working closely with Charlie, who is a new deputy in the town where she lives, and they try to get to the bottom of what is going on. And it's really sweet. I like the characters in this. I like their dynamic. The people in their lives as well were really intriguing, and some of them were just fantastic. And she has a little boy who is just the cutest thing ever. Yeah, this is the first book that I have read by Natalie Walters, and I am very excited to read more by her. One of the books that has been very high on my want to read list is Spies, Lies, and Alibis. And so she writes a lot of different things, usually with some component of suspense built in there. And I'm excited to read more of her backlist and get further in this series that I have started now. A fantasy that I read that finishes out a series for me is Lethal Kings. This is the Fae Dynasty Book 2 by Victoria McCombs. And it was really good. I enjoyed the first book in this series, but I absolutely loved the second. I feel like our main female character grows so much and learns so much from her experiences in the first book, and our main male character is fantastic in this. I really enjoyed getting to know more about his story as we went along and seeing their dynamic as they navigate all the crazy things that get thrown at them in this world, because this world is not an easy place to live at all. And even a subtle turn of phrase or agreeing to something can have huge ramifications. So you have to be very careful navigating the politics and the games that exist in this world, because almost everything is a game. Almost everything is a riddle or something that you're having to confront. And our characters have to be really careful what they agree to as part of the games and the things that happen in this world in order to get to where they're needing to go. This one was very hard for me to put down. Once I started reading it, I wanted to just binge it all the way to the end. And this world is just so unique, and the politics are just so unique that I had to know what was going on. And you get to find out so much more too about who our main female character actually is in this story, and her history and the history of her family as well. So yes, I definitely recommend this duology by Victoria McCombs if you're a fantasy lover, and looking into some of her other books, which is what I'm going to do, because these are the first two that I've read by her, but I certainly don't want them to be the last, because I'm looking forward to seeing more of her stories. Another one I was able to read was The Girl Upstairs by Jessica R. Patch, and this was something like I could barely put this one down as well. It was very spooky, creepy, atmospheric, all things that I love. I would definitely say this would be a good one to read in the fall. It's great for summer as well, but it takes place kind of September and into October mainly in this book. And so it's really, really good for the fall time. And it is just spooky. You don't know what is going on, and is our character really seeing what she's seeing? Is she not seeing what she's seeing? Like, is she unreliable? It is so hard to figure out what is actually happening, and Jessica did such an amazing job weaving all these pieces together to take us to the end of a story that was very complex and very much making you wonder what is actually going on in this story. The themes and the things that happen in this are fairly intense, so just a warning around that. But it is handled really well. And there are so many twists and turns and all the things in this. And like I said, just very atmospheric. And there is a huge mystery and a huge history surrounding this house that our main female character and her husband move into. And there are a lot of people in this story who make Gwen, our main female character, feel like everything that she's thinking and feeling isn't real or valid. And so you're trying to figure out, well, what all is. Heavy mystery, heavy backstory. I really love locational mysteries that take place in a location or like history of an old house or things like that. And this had a lot of that, very much centered on the house that they purchase and move into. And I will just say there was one thing that happened in the beginning that I was like, I think I know what this is. I think I know what this is. I may not know any other aspect of this mystery, but I think I know what's going on with this. And I was actually right on it. It was just like, I just had this feeling, and it was actually correct. A completely opposite vibe to that one. We had kind of chilling and spooky in that one, and then we had very lighthearted, sunny and fun, The Summer of Yes by Courtney Walsh. I really enjoy books by Courtney Walsh. They are always just so much fun. They're so feel good. You love the characters. You usually always have something in there that you learn from along the way, or lines that just kind of hit. And this one was no exception. I really enjoyed this. I liked our main characters. And seeing the relationship between Kelsey and Georgina was just something. There were points in the book that I was frustrated with both of them. It's like, okay, both of you need to just stop and think about what is going on here. But I really enjoyed getting to see how they grew closer together, and Georgina was pulled into things despite her not wanting anything to do with it, but it ended up resulting in some really, really great things happening in both of their lives and taking them both places that they never would have expected and that were much, much better for them. There's also a romance element in this, and the main male character was really, really fantastic. And then they also go to this town that's like on the sea, and it was very summery and very fun, and he sells boats and everything, so there was a little bit of boating and stuff like that in this book. So definitely recommend for summer. If you haven't read this one, there's still a little bit of summer left that you might be able to squeeze this in and have a good time. It was just fun, refreshing, and neat to see where our characters' lives ultimately ended up by the end. Next, we have a historical fiction. It is the first book in the Women of Midtown series by Elizabeth Camden, and that is While the City Sleeps. This was very, very interesting because our main female character, Catherine, she actually works at a dentist in the city, and she usually works kind of later at night. And then our main male character, Jonathan, is a police officer in the city that usually works the night shift. And so that's how they get to know each other, and over time develop a lot of trust and caring and ultimately feelings, of course, for each other through that connection and then through the events that are happening in the story. Catherine actually hears about something from somebody who is under the influence of laughing gas when she's doing a dental procedure on that person. And at first she doesn't think too much of it, but then something else occurs in the book and she thinks back to what this individual said, and that really pulls her into this mystery and ultimately makes her a target of the wrong side. The historical glimpse of the times was really fun. Getting to see the dynamic between Catherine and Jonathan was great. And also getting to see them learn, especially Jonathan in many ways. I feel like he grew a lot as a character in this because of certain things that happened to him along the way. And that was really neat to see what happened with him because of his past and his present, and how that really worked together to change him. Like, he's a great guy from the beginning, but you just see a lot of growth and a lot of things that he has had in his past, things and viewpoints that he has held on to that really shift during the course of this story. This is a series that I really wanted to get into in 2026, so I'm really happy that I have read the first book and very much looking forward to the second one now. Another historical fiction I read was A Rumored Fortune by Joanna Davidson Politano. This is the second book that I have read by Joanna, and so far I've been reading them in publication order, which was quite by accident, but now that I've started, I kind of want to keep doing it that way. I want to read her entire backlist and try to do it in publication order. This one I was actually able to buddy read with Bethany from Bethany Between the Pages, and both she and I really enjoyed this one. It was a phenomenal story, and there was so much that happened that you could really see. Again, this one had intensive character development between both characters. But this was truly a fantastic story. I really loved it. There were so many amazing quotes, just like in the first book I read by her, that just hit so hard. There are these one-liners or these little paragraphs that get right to the heart of something that leave you just sitting there for a minute going, wow, that was good and so relevant. But this takes place in Victorian England at a castle called Trevelyan Castle, where our female main character lives, and she ends up meeting our male main character when he comes to help tend the vineyard that is on that property. And there is also quite a twist in this book. A couple of times. There are a couple of twists in this book, but she did an awesome job with those twists, and it really gave a picture of why the things were happening the way they were happening in the book, and also how it brought people together, because there was a lot of baggage with certain people and characters in this book, and there was a lot of who actually is doing things for the right reason and who is doing things because they have some kind of selfish motivation behind it, and figuring out what that looked like. There was a lot of who to actually trust and a lot of duplicitous behavior by some of these characters that you're trying to figure out who's on the right side of all of this. And of course, when you throw a fortune that is rumored to exist that nobody knows where it is, you're going to get some interesting people involved, because as money can do, and especially a rumored vast fortune, it can bring out the best and the worst in people. So you do get to see some of that in this book. So the history, the mystery, the romance between our two main characters was great, and it was such a fantastic slow burn all the way through. I really did enjoy this one, and I'm looking forward to the next book that Joanna wrote. Another one that I read was Juniper Bean Resorts to Murder by Gracie Ruth Mitchell, and this is the first book that I read by Gracie. It was a lot of fun. It was very quirky More quirky than I even expected. Our characters both had so many nuances to them. It was pretty funny getting to read all the different things about their characters. But she's a romance writer who is having difficulties writing romance and ends up going more the mystery route because she just can't help herself. And he is a teacher who loves all things Shakespeare and classics and everything like that. And they both have an interesting history, and they end up thrown together, and they find themselves in the middle of a real life mystery that now they're trying to figure out what is happening, and it does also put them in some danger. But yeah, this is kind of like a cross between a rom-com and a mystery. You get a little bit of both in this one. It kind of went in some directions that I actually didn't even anticipate just from what I read on the back cover. There were some things that were very funny, but there were other things that were very intense. There were some subject matter in here that is like, ooh, yeah, that is hard. That's really hard. But it was really cool getting to go on an adventure with our two main characters and see what actually was happening and who was behind it. And I can't remember which chapter it was. I enjoyed the introduction to the book, but there was a certain chapter fairly early on. I think it was only a few chapters in, maybe 4 or 5 chapters in, somewhere around in there. I can't remember, but something happens right there, and then I was like completely hooked, and then I had to find out what was going on and had a hard time putting the book down. There's another book by Gracie that she wrote that's kind of in a similar vein to this one, and so I would like to check that one out and see what I think, but this one was a lot of fun. And last but certainly not least, I was able to read Edenbrooke by Julianne Donaldson. I have been hearing raving reviews about this one for a very long time and have been wanting to read it myself to see what I was missing out on. And I will have to say that it was an extremely good book. This is more of a Regency, and our main character is so funny, so prone to klutziness, and very quirky. And she just does some of the most outrageous things that I was literally laughing out loud. Our main male character is phenomenal. He is just so great. I will definitely be remembering these two main characters for a very, very long time. And there is a high likelihood that I will want to reread Philip and Marianne's story because it was just that good. There was a certain point in the book that I got to that I couldn't put it down. I just pretty much binged it because I had to know what was going on. I was sitting there waiting for some things to happen, and at first they weren't, and I was like, come on, come on, come on. And then finally things started falling into place, and it was so satisfying. There is a rather memorable character in the first chapter that I won't go into details about, but that was interesting. That individual was very interesting. But once you get past that character in the first chapter, then the book just soars. It was so, so, so good. And like I said, just truly satisfying. The novella that I read is actually a novella that you can purchase them separately. You can have just the Edenbrooke, and then the novella is called Heir to Edenbrooke. And it's very short. It's like 50, 60, I think it's 60 something pages, somewhere around in there. But this special edition actually has both of them inside. So that's why I was like, I read 9, maybe 10 books if you count the novella. And I would definitely recommend reading the novella. I am glad, even though it's technically a prequel to the book, I'm glad that I did not read it until after. It was, I believe, published after the main book came out. And I would personally recommend reading it that way because I think it hits a lot harder and you have a lot more history and stuff to give you the context for what happens in that prequel. I would recommend reading it after reading Edenbrooke. I think that worked the best and it made it more meaningful. I definitely think it made it more meaningful reading it that direction. So yes, if you haven't read Edenbrooke, please do. It was so, so good. It has been a few days since I finished this one and I'm still thinking about these characters And like I said, I for sure see myself rereading this one. This one is truly reread caliber. Some of the scenes and things that happen in this, the best. Absolutely the best. I loved it. Their banter, the two of them together, was the best combination ever. And that is everything. That is everything that I read in the month of July, except for the ones that I am part of the way through, but hopefully I will get those read and be able to talk about them in the August wrap up. Have you read any of these books that I covered today? If so, what did you think of them? And also, what were some books that you read in July that you really enjoyed? Definitely let me know in the comments below. I absolutely love getting to hear all about what you're currently reading and enjoying. Thank you for spending this time with me. I appreciate you all so very much. And as always, remember to keep following your dreams and believing in the magic of this thing called life. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon.